Moving on to one of my favorites, the driving out of nations. And this is the last one I'm going to talk about in the Torah. And it's the one that a lot of people have a problem with. Okay, this is a big one. So the question is, how could a loving God condone and even decree the nation of Israel to barge into the promised land, killing everything that breathes, as it says in Deuteronomy 20, and even invading other lands and killing, males if they do not pack up and leave, things like that. So one, we have the fact that is Israel's land that was promised to Abraham, and God always keeps his promises. And so Israel was going to inhabit that land no matter what. And it's not like the people in the nations that were there were going to just up and leave because Moses told them that God told them to. So there was going to be warfare, inevitably. So two, the people of Israel have a history of intermarrying with wicked people and worshiping wicked gods. And I remember idolatry is the big no-no. For example, in Numbers 25:1, it says, "While Israel lived in Shittim, the people began to whore with the daughters of Moab. These invited the people to the sacrifices of their gods, and the people ate and bowed down to their gods." Okay, and in Psalm 106:34, David goes on to kind of explain some more of the wickedness of these nations. They did not destroy the peoples as the Lord commanded them, but they mixed with the nations and learned to do as they did. They served their idols, which became a snare to them. They sacrificed their sons and their daughters to the demons. They poured out innocent blood, the blood of their sons and daughters, whom they sacrificed to the idols of Canaan, and the land was polluted with blood. So these nations would become a snare to them if they were to leave them alive. Also, not because of your righteousness or the uprightness of your heart are you going in to possess the land, but because of the wickedness of these nations, the Lord your God is driving them out before you. Okay, so God is reminding the people of Israel, you're not too awesome. You are not holy or righteous in any way without me. It's not because of your righteousness that I'm driving out these people. It's because of their wickedness. And so that's another reason why God is decreeing that these nations not only be driven out, but executed. First of all, on a positive note, God decrees that when Israel encounters a nation for warfare outside of the promised land, maybe for expansion purposes or what have you, that they offer a peace treaty first, some sort of peace offering, it says. And if that is rejected, then warfare ensues. But there is a chance still for there not to be warfare and bloodshed. When it comes to something like taking captives in war, which a lot of people have a problem with, for instance, if I read Deuteronomy 21:10 through 14, people may have a problem with this. It says, basically, in effect, when you go to war against your enemies and the Lord God gives them into your hand and you take them captive, and you see among the captives a beautiful woman, and you desire to take her to be your wife, you bring her home to your house, she shall shave her head, pare her nails, take off the clothes in which she was captured, and shall remain in your house, and lament her father and mother a full month. But after that you may go into her and be her husband, and she shall be your wife. But if you no longer delight in her, you shall let her go where she wants, but you shall not sell her for money, nor shall you treat her as a slave, since you have humiliated her. So it looks like here that God is condoning, if you see a cute girl, when you capture a land, take her home, let her grieve and whatever, and then make her your wife. And if you don't like her anymore, just get rid of her. Let her go where she wants. That's not how it's toned at all. That's not how it's supposed to be. This is a law in the Old Testament, and there are several of these laws that were created with the hardness of heart in mind, okay? You'll see this in Mark 10:5. It talks about the laws having to do with divorce are also laws that were created for the people's hardness of heart. These laws were created as to prevent collateral damage, in other words. They were to prevent the spread of sin to other areas. Because God knew that his people were going to rebel occasionally, but he had these laws in place for when they do rebel to keep it from being as catastrophic as it could be. And this is an example of that, because here we have a guy seeing a woman that he thinks is cute. Now God still gives a month of grieving, so it's not like you can take this woman and immediately be her husband. And this allows a month of learning who this person actually is, and grieving maybe with this person. And if this man, so then if this man had originally wanted her to take her as his wife out of lustful reasons, this month of learning about this person would perhaps change his mind about that, and he would have a change of heart. If he still, for some reason, had lustful intent after a month and married her, and then he realized that he no longer delighted in her because he was just marrying her for lustful purposes, he was to let her go. And not sell her for money or treat her as a slave. So basically, God is saying there are some people that are going to take people as their wife, and they're going to do it for the wrong reasons. And these women are going to be humiliated in the process because they don't love this man. But you are to let her go after that, and don't sell her for money or treat her as a slave. So that's actually God's provision and showing that he loves these people. On another note, being in the house of an Israelite is probably the best place to be. So as far as taking captives into the camp of Israel, that's a good deal for them. Because remember, Israel is God's chosen people. And so being taken captive by Israel, being adopted into Israel or taken as a wife is actually a positive thing for you in the long run. You may not realize it at the time. But I think in the long run that was a good thing because that's God's closest family.